30 years ago, more than 50 hostages who had been held in Iran for more than a year came to the U.S. Military Academy immediately after they were freed. This weekend, many of them are there again. Senior correspondent Eric Shawn reports from West Point.
The Iranian hostages are back. That was the 1981 headline, and today, 15 of them were again embraced by a warm welcome. At West Point, the entire Corps of Cadets, 4,400 of them, lined the snow-filled campus to greet the group returning for a reunion, marking the 30th anniversary of their freedom.
I don't really see myself as a part of history because it was part of my life, but I know how important this community was to, and our whole nation was, to following our situation, praying for us, putting up yellow ribbons, waving flags, and welcoming us home.
Back then, they arrived at West Point to recuperate and be reunited with their families after being held for 444 days by Iranian students who took over the U.S. Embassy to protest American support of the deposed Shah.
When I was first taken hostage and a gun was thrust to my head, I said to myself, this cannot happen.
Rosen, the embassy press attaché, was blindfolded and subject to mock executions.
For 2 months, we didn't see any light at all. We were absolutely in total darkness.
In 1981, Colonel Charles Gus Stafford was a young cadet. He is now West Point's chief of staff.
To physically see those people here and know how happy they were and that they were home and they were free, it was just made your heart burst. It was just wonderful.
Please welcome our distinguished and honored guests, the survivors of the Iran hostage crisis.
The reunion is not only about catching up, but also educating the young cadets who weren't even born when the hostage crisis happened.
One of the most powerful things is just like learning what it means to be a patriot and to really have that courage to persist in times of difficulty and real test of your inner strength.
The message to the cadets: no matter where you are, you will not be forgotten. As for the Iranians, though, Rosen is blunt. I don't forgive them, he says. I despise the regime. At West Point, Eric Shawn, Fox News.
The difference here is that Iran, does not want to litigate whether or not they have the right to nuclear weapons, and everyone else does want to litigate that point and say that they don't have that right. So it just seems to be in some ways Groundhog Day with these P5+1 talks every time.
And at the table, of course, we have Russia and China who have interests. And this week there were members of the Congress who stepped up and said that those countries are potentially, China especially, potentially violating the current sanctions with Iran. So how much are they going to do to get serious?
Groundhog Day indeed. I mean, this is what's happened in the past before. Russia and China have always been the problem with the P5+1 talks. And it's why I think actually the most important development on Iran did not happen in Turkey today, but happened in London, ironically, where Tony Blair was testifying before an inquiry about the Iraq War. And he said he learned 2 lessons about Iraq. One of the 2 lessons was the interrelationship between Iran and Al-Qaeda. And he said that unless you solve the Iran problem, you're not going to be able to solve the Al-Qaeda problem, which is a stunning statement from a world leader who has seen all of the intelligence on both.